Bullets flying inside a small Texas church.
We all in here know what happened today, and it's something we all say does not happen in small communities. Well, we found out today it does.
A gunman targeting a house of worship packed with people.
It's another census act by a cowardly bastard is all I can tell you. You know, there's no reason for it, but that's the world we live in today.
The death toll at 26 and dozens more injured in a mass shooting at a church service in Sutherland Springs.
So Lee says that when she heard the first gunshots, she ducked and she crawled under a church pew trying to hide from the gunman. She could smell the gunpowder and she could see the carpet in front of her splintering.
People are whispering, he's in here, everybody's crying, and you know, he's in, and I could see, I looked like that, I could see him, you know, but I could see him, I was hiding under the benches, and I could see him, his feet, walking back and forth through the aisles. I didn't want to get shot.
The suspect is Devin Kelly, seen here on a public Facebook account next to an image of a gun posted last week. DPS says the suspect
was dressed in all black tactical type gear and was wearing a ballistic vest.
That shooter emptied 15 magazines, each one with the capacity to hold 30 bullets. That means if all of those magazines were full, he could have pulled the trigger 450 times. DPS believes there was a lot more to it than just family conflict.
There are many ways that he could have taken care of the mother-in-law without coming with 15 loaded magazines and an assault rifle to a church. I think he came here with a purpose and a mission.
And every time I heard a shot, I knew that probably represented a life.
Stephen Williford, a former NRA instructor, was at home Sunday morning. He says his daughter came into his bedroom and said she heard gunshots at the First Baptist Church. Williford exchanged gunfire with the shooter. When the gunman got into his car and took off, Williford flagged down another driver. They chased him and called 911. And new tonight, the son of a woman who was in that church says Williford showing up at that exact moment saved his mother's life.
Started shooting the lady next to her multiple times, and then she was pretty certain she was next and her life was about to end. Then somebody with the gun showed up at the front of the church, caught the shooter's attention, and he left.
The shooter ended up taking his own life about 10 miles from the church after 2 civilians chased him.
Kelly previously was a United States Air Force member. He served from 2010 to 2014 when he was discharged for bad conduct. The Air Force tells us that he was court-martialed for 2 counts of assault on his spouse and on their child.
His 2014 conviction for domestic violence should have disqualified him from being able to buy a weapon. But the Air Force admitted today no one entered his past military conviction into the national database as required.
We have the freedom to choose, and rather than choose darkness as the one young man did that day, I say we choose life.
The preacher whose own child was one of the 26 killed, delivering a message of hope.
I know everyone who gave their life that day, some of which were my best friends. One, my daughter.
Volunteers helped restore the church sanctuary after last Sunday's mass shooting here. 26 empty chairs have been placed for all the lives lost inside. The chairs, I'm told, are where each person was found on that day.
Tonight, KXAN reveals more unauthorized construction work on City of Austin buildings leading to asbestos contaminations. Building projects moving forward, putting workers at risk of exposure to this substance. It's been linked to cancer if breathed in over long periods.
And now investigator Kylie McGivern has learned the city manager's office has called for an executive review after we discovered this potentially dangerous system breakdown.
There's a lot of people that were involved that are concerned. The bottom line is what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. It doesn't go any further than that.
This worker agreed to speak with us under one condition. We conceal his identity for fear of retaliation. He says he and others had concerns about asbestos inside the city's Doris Miller Auditorium earlier this year.
We were doing wall construction, air condition, ceiling drops, and stuff like that.
City documents show that renovation work was not supposed to happen. Here's why. Before any work is done on a city building, a department must fill out a work request to avoid any potential asbestos exposures. The Parks and Recreation Department submitted its work request for this project, a music studio for youth, but it was denied by the city's asbestos manager because a survey was needed to know if asbestos was inside the building.
Asbestos is a carcinogen, and so any level of asbestos exposure is not deemed to be safe.
It wasn't until a few weeks into the project where a return vent was punched in the wall. We came back one morning and we were stopped because it had to be abated.
This worker says he did not know the construction he and his crews were doing had not been approved.
So I wanted you to take a look at that.
So it was denied before we even went in there. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. There you have it.
It's unclear who gave the green light to start work without proper approval or how many people might have been exposed. Now, the city's looking into it.
What do you think when you hear that concern?
Doesn't sound like the appropriate action to take once you've been advised by a licensed consultant not to do the work.
We learned this is not the first time construction has continued after a work request was denied in the past year. Over at Austin Water, the city shot down a request, noting all walls, floors, and window glazing are positive for asbestos. Still, work moved forward, and 20 people were potentially exposed. Comments from workers on injury forms say they never knew or were informed, but management knew about it, and that department heads should have told workers about it so they could wear the right safety equipment. At the Austin Fire Department, photos we obtained from the city show a training facility where unauthorized construction disturbed asbestos in the flooring. More than 30 people were working in the building, though it's still unknown how many might have been exposed. Now, the city is trying to learn why work proceeded in those departments without approval as well. We discovered part of the reason: no one is actually following up on denied work requests.
City staff is responsible for their own safety. We don't follow up by checking to make sure they do not disturb the materials. And if it's necessary to add components to enhance the ability of the program to function appropriately, then that would be something that we would look at.
At the end of the day, all for what? What did that project mean so much that it put people's lives in danger?
150 miles, that's it. That away over my shoulder are the outermost rain bands of a rapidly intensifying Category 1 hurricane. Not only bring the rain and wind for a short time, but let it sit over southeast Texas for several days. That is going to make the ocean rise over my head as soon as tomorrow night. It might also produce literally a year's worth of rainfall on the Texas coast over the next 2 to 3 days.
The wind has picked up, the rain is torrential, and as folks shelter in place, there is no shortage of worry tonight.
This is one of the sturdiest shelters we've got in town, built purposefully for a hurricane. You can see the wind is rocking out there. As we speak, check it out. They are lowering the hurricane shutters, literally battening down the hatches.
It is going to go in the history books as the first Category 4 hurricane to hit the Texas coast since Carla 1961.
We've seen pieces of sheet metal 20 by 20 feet wide. You might even see some debris flying by here. 130-mile-an-hour winds is what we're listening to. You were talking about the leaks coming in through the window over here, which you can still see pouring in. It sounds like any of these windows are about to blow through.
You can see the water now bubbling underneath the door here of the front door of the lobby in this hotel.
We're running on backup power. We've got, just to set the scene, dogs, elderly people. There's at least one baby here.
What happened to us now has the Attorney General launching a price gouging investigation.
This was a KXAN crew looking for a place to spend the night right in the middle of Harvey's landfall. An online search showed room rates at this Robstown Best Western Plus priced around $120 a night. But it was a different story at the counter.
Maybe a little higher on weekends, right? Yeah.
It will start with 129 and sometimes it will end up with 189.
But why is it so much?
Because people are calling to take rooms and they are willing to take for that price. I don't have any control of the price.
The price, $289, nearly double the normal rate.
Don't take advantage of people who are vulnerable because they're running away from a flood or affected by a hurricane.
The hotel at the center of our price gouging investigation is no longer a Best Western hotel. The company yanked its franchise today. Now, the AG's office got our crew and 39 other hotel customers a refund.
The Texas Attorney General's office is suing the hotel's owners.
AG Ken Paxton is asking for fines that could top $1 million. In direct response to our report, he says, quote, "It is unconscionable that any business would take advantage of Texans at their most vulnerable."
People in Fayette County along the Colorado River are being forced to leave. Everything you see here in this red zone is under mandatory evacuation.
LaGrange police went door to door to hundreds of addresses close to the river to tell people they should get to higher ground.
If you do decide to leave, tie this around your door handle. Okay. That way we know you left and we can try to keep an eye on your property.
Okay, thank you. This thing is going to stick around for multiple days because it's being steered by a system way out to the west. So it's going to hang around central Texas. And as it does so, it could create torrential rainfall for us. Have the possibility now of up to 20 inches of rain.
Take a look. A slow motion catastrophe is playing out right in front of us as the tops of trees turn into mere bushes and more water is flowing underneath this bridge where we stand than flows over Niagara Falls during its peak flow season.
Flood stage is 26 feet. We're currently almost double.
The Colorado River crested just above 54 feet, second only to a flood in 1913.
I'm going to be 105 years old next month, and I've never seen anything like this before.
We're standing here outside of a nursing home. Let me take you over here to this parking lot. All 53 residents of this nursing home are now, with the higher river crest forecast, being evacuated by stretchers, by ambulance. 43 others are being picked up, some by family, some taken home, some taken to emergency shelters.
That was a car that's completely submerged underwater. We've been driving around it for 3 or 4 days now.
Senator Brian Hughes and Representative Cole Hefner drove down to Houston early in the week.
A number of folks we've talked to had not been flooded until the last couple of days because this water is released from the reservoirs to keep the dams from breaking. Okay.
People are still living in these homes. Some say they're fine. Some have ran out of supplies.
Some of these addresses we've been to 3 or 4 times, and folks are finally realizing it's probably a good idea to get out.
Now, with so many of you sending us your reported tips about some of the stations that are out of gas, we recognize the potential for price gouging.
It's not every day you see people lining up for $3.49 a gallon gas, but these drivers did at this Q-Mart on Wells Branch Parkway in Austin overnight.
You had to do it, you know.
We were out searching Austin and the Hurricane Harvey evacuation route, checking gas prices. Of the more than 30 gas stations we previously visited as the storm rolled in, this one was more than $1 higher than the average of all others. $3.49 a gallon. Is that suspicious to you?
Yes, it is.
You willing to pay that?
I have to right now. I don't have a choice.
That sounds like it could be interpreted as price gouging.
Well, I just work here.
I understand.
So to me, I don't really care either way.
Those stores will need to address that and be held accountable.
The city of Austin tells me that buses full of evacuees from Victoria will be arriving here tonight. The Delco Center can take about 100 more people. Gabriella and her mom left Port Lavaca Thursday.
I was scared. I didn't want to stay there. So we came here.
She also has a 1.5-year-old son and another dog, all staying at the Delco Center.
We stayed at a hotel too, but that gets really expensive, so we're here until we can go back.
Overwhelmed and restless, Franklin says Governor Greg Abbott's visit Saturday gave her comfort, sharing with him concerns for her father, who stayed behind in the storm.
Knowing my dad hasn't answered the phone, they don't have any electricity, no water. I mean, I don't know what kind of supplies he had.
I comforted her by letting her know how important it was that she was able to evacuate.
So I grabbed Social Security card, ID, birth certificate, ran, and then like 20 minutes later, my house was gone.
The family was renting a home that backed up to the Colorado River near the Business 71 bridge. In this aerial footage, the home is completely underwater.
This much you can see the tip of my house, so my whole house is gone.
This is my second time today to be out here, so the devastation is just horrible.
trailers full of what's left, or all Melinda Scott knows of what might be waiting for her family.
I mean, these are people's belongings that they've worked all their lives for, and, you know, it's gone.
More than 170 trailer homes were damaged by Harvey, nearly 75 standing homes with major damage, and more than 30 businesses.
Not good.
This is the first time Larry Harrington has seen inside his downtown LaGrange shop since Harvey dumped more than 26 inches of rain on the city.
Supposed to have been a key to our forklift here somewhere. Probably floated away.
Omaha's Choice distributes treats like pies and jerky. Floodwater wiped out most of the company's supplies.
And this is the result of Hurricane Harvey, now expected to be, according to FEMA, the worst natural disaster the state of Texas has ever seen.
Get away from me, man! Somebody on that! Now, move!
He was the police chief of Little River Academy. He loved that town, and the town loved him.
Do you need another unit?
Not at this time.
Lee went on a road rage call.
Somebody pulled a gun out on somebody. And then a few minutes later, he had gone to that house. And that time, I didn't think he needed any backup, but I decided to go anyway.
Hello, Police Chief Dixon, Little River. Can I talk to you outside, please? Yes, sir. Was you driving that little white pickup a while ago? Yes, sir. You pointed a gun in somebody's face a while ago? He pulled up my driveway and threatened me. He tried to run over me twice. I grabbed my gun out of my console and I said, "You're trespassing." What we're going to do is we're going to go to court and we're going to let a judge decide what's going on. You go get you a warrant and do whatever you have to do. And you get off my property, too. I don't have to get off your property. Yes, sir, you do. No, I don't. I'm here on official business. Now don't start this.
Mr. Reisner retreats into his home, shuts the door.
3801.
I need another unit, please.
Chief Dixon, one of the neighbors, saw him kicking Mr. Reisner's door in.
David, my door. Now go.
The man greeted him at the door with a 12-gauge shotgun and shot him twice in the face.
Go. You're fixing to go to jail. Show me your hands.
He murdered my friend. He murdered a police officer. Cold-blooded, like a dog, murdered him. Shot him in the face with a shotgun. Point-blank range.
And he shot him again after he was down.
While he was down, yeah.
Bell County 911, where is your emergency?
Oh, yeah, I'm here at Little River Academy. Officer just tried to assault me and tried to come in my house.
Okay, and what's your address, sir?
He pointed the gun at me.
What's your address, sir?
He tried to shoot me, and I shot him back with a shotgun.
We were getting a call in that the officer was shot. We do have the EMS started.
When I got there, I could see Lee laying on the ground on the porch. I could see his feet, and I could see that man hovering above him.
Hey! Put your hands up! Put them up! Put them up, man! Do it now! You don't move! You understand me? Stay on the ground! Stay on the ground! You don't move! I'm gonna blow your head off! Got him? I got him.
And after that, that's when we started rendering aid on Lee. It was horrible. It was a nightmare that I was experiencing, that I was wide awake, and there's things in my head that I never want to see again.
Wake up, Lee! Come on, man! Wake up, Lee! Come on, Lee! Wake up! I just got the phone with him. Take a break. Lee, wake up, man! Come on, Lee. Oh, man. Come on, man. I just talked to him on the phone, man. Please hurry, please hurry. Shot at in the face.
Police officers put their lives on the line for us every day. Mr. Reisner had done that for 20 years. Got all sorts of community awards for being an excellent police officer, was active in victims organizations and in a local church.
What happened when he was overseas?
Well, at first there were no problems. He went to Kosovo, where he was a border guard and helped to train police officers on the border in Kosovo, and really felt like he was doing a lot of good. And then he went to Iraq. Now, Iraq was a totally different situation.
We're looking at his MRI here. There are some areas that are really compromised, especially when it's related to aggression or violence.
How do you think his specific mental health issues impacted him right in that moment when he shot the police chief?
He was delusional, okay, he was angry, irritable, would be set off immediately by something that would have been just a benign or insignificant trigger. He, I will say, snapped.
Chair calls a hearing for the Select Committee on Mental Health to order.
I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Municipal Police Association. Because, as you said, Representative, that's crisis intervention we're talking about. It's already a crisis by the time law enforcement gets involved. Training our officers in how to recognize people with mental disabilities and training our officers in what services are available out there, you know, to funnel those folks into. I think that's the best we can possibly do from the law enforcement perspective.
We're gonna take you to the doc, all right? So you can talk to somebody and try to figure it out. It's not a big deal. But if you're not coming with us, then we need to have you, all right?
40 hours is the ideal amount of time for training for de-escalation or that type of circumstance.
So it just becomes part of basic training.
It's a no-brainer.
It seemed like maybe he just felt like he could handle the situation, that it wasn't going to escalate.
That's just the kind of person that Lee was. He'd take care of it and go about your business.
From the officer's perspective, I would think I would like to know what people in my community might potentially be a threat.
Once you finally heard who it was, did something click?
Yes. Yeah, it all clicked.
Mr. Reisner was pulled over for not signaling at a stop sign.
Pull to the side of the road. Pull to the side of the road and get back in the car.
Definitely got bowed up and got crosswise, and frankly was being unreasonable in the situation.
The traffic laws say you will pull to the right side of the road and stop for an emergency vehicle. I pulled over. You are not. You were stopped in the middle of the lane and you sit here arguing with me. What is your problem? You!
Other officers come, they wind up putting him in the police car. They come to search the vehicle, pop open the trunk. This big, huge assault rifle is mounted on the inside of the trunk.
That's ours. What is this? Oh, that's an AK.
Knowing now what we do know about what wound up happening to Mr. Reisner, that's in hindsight very frightening to look at and see that, oh my gosh, this guy's running around with a gun.
Often past behavior predicts future behavior. With these calls, we were looking a lot at his mental state and how he evolved actually into someone who would kill a police officer in the line of duty.
He just didn't know who he was dealing with. But if you don't know them, how are you supposed to know what their mental capacity is before?
Right now, officers can access criminal backgrounds, but maybe not always the mental health background.
There are probably some privacy issues that you have to keep in mind sharing information like that.
Hey, gorgeous, how are you?
Handsome, I'm great. How are you?
Woohoo, I'm doing great now. Well, how you doing?
When I met him, he kept saying he always wanted to be one. So the day before we got married, I put him in a police academy. And when he graduated, I was his first supervisor. It's what I've been doing for 25 years. And Lee would be upset if I just quit because of him.
Breaking news from KXAN News.
Good afternoon, I'm Shannon Wolfson. That breaking news right now from the University of Texas campus. Austin police say one person is dead and several people have been stabbed.
Police say that more than 25 students witnessed the attack.
And I see a guy wearing a bandana with a big knife, like a machete or something, and he looked at me and I was like, oh. I thought I was gonna die.
I just see somebody like passed out on the floor, covered in blood.
Harrison handed his cell phone to a stranger and asked her to call his mom.
She said, are you Harrison's mom? And I could tell by her voice that something was wrong. And she said Harrison has been stabbed.
He was wounded up here. Another student was applying pressure to stop the bleeding. Then someone else yelled and pointed behind me, that guy is stabbing people.
Officer Park says he saw White walking to Jester dorm and raising a knife at another student.
That's when I drew my taser and I ordered him to drop the knife. He opened his hand and just let the knife fall. It was eerie, is the best way I can describe it.
And investigators say the stabbing suspect has a history of mental health issues. Kendrick White was involuntarily committed to a mental health facility recently.
Those who had class with White say recently he had been acting completely different.
He was pretty depressed.
More than 1,000 students packed to the main mall at UT for a vigil tonight, looking for some solace after Monday's deadly attack on campus.
Womack says it was in that room Brown shared his passion for music.
He was an awesome singer, and I loved to watch him play. And, that's definitely something I'll really miss.
I want answers. The message from hundreds of KXAN viewers this week and counting. All TxTag customers, all fed up with customer service.
The hoops you have to jump through to get someone to work with you.
Complaints resurface with the state's tollway billing system.
Those fees start to apply, and they can add up very quickly.
After the Texas Department of Transportation first promised to fix it 2 years ago.
If you're going to build a toll road, it better work the way people expect it to.
Welcome to a special edition of State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle, joining you from Interstate 35 right through the heart of downtown Austin, one of the most congested stretches of highway in the nation, just blocks away from your lawmakers at the state capitol. Like you, many of them travel with toll roads to avoid this traffic nightmare. And here in Central Texas, we have plenty of options. A maze of tollways, some causing a lot of frustration.
For years, Mila Louvier says she enjoyed the convenience of the TxTag system. She could drive through tolls with no hassle. And TxTag simply drew money automatically from her bank. Then this spring, she started noticing some unexpected charges. So she reached out to TxTag customer service.
Calls to them haven't been helpful.
Louvier says she phoned repeatedly, waiting more than a month just to get a call back from someone who could resolve her problem.
Those calls just didn't come until it was way too late, until they had sent 95% of our account to collections.
In just a short 2-month span, her initial $400 bill had shot up by more than $5,700 in administration fees. And soon, a collections company was demanding she pay up.
I do feel like this is a goal of their customer service, to send people into collections and get as much money off of these fees as they can.
Thank you for calling TxTag customer service. Louvier is not alone. This year, more than 2.2 million TxTag accounts have been sent to collections, racking up nearly $1 billion in fees for drivers. Linda Sexton heads up toll operations at TxDOT and says those fees can add up fast. Isn't it a problem if nearly 30% of all TxTag accounts are in collections?
Well, it's not necessarily indicative of a problem. It's very clearly drawn out how a transaction escalates through the process and the applicable fees that will be applied if those notices go unanswered.
It's heartbreaking to listen to those kind of calls every day. And it's all day long.
This former TxTag customer service representative asked us to conceal her identity if she agreed to share what happened when she took her concerns about calls to management.
They do not care if you have a problem with it. That's your job. You do what they say or you can leave. They don't care.
And so you left?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd rather leave than work for a company like that. I'm not going to work for them.
And when she left, she took her employee manual. It says workers must keep their call times to just 5.5 minutes, including hold time. What happens if the issue is too complex to be able to be resolved in under 5.5 minutes?
There's going to be those instances, and we will certainly take the time that is necessary to ensure that we answer all of the questions and that we answer it to the customer satisfaction.
Still, customer service reps are given a quota, at least 80 calls per day, to collect as many payments as possible, but to never inform customers if their accounts are in collections, which might mean they owe a lot more.
They're paying and they're thinking that they're paying their bill, which to me is even more deceitful.
Why are people sitting on hold?
When the contractor hired to collect those bills didn't meet customer service expectations in 2015, it was penalized $177,000 by the state. The message? Shorter wait times and fewer frustrations.
Thank you for calling the TxTag Customer Service Center. Your request could not be processed.
The outcome? New problems and uncertainty TxDOT will ever fix the system.
It's going to take another agency to go through and fix it. They're never going to do it on their own. It needs to be changed now.
We learned in just the few days since we first started telling viewers about our investigation this week, Speaker Joe Straus added toll transparency and stakeholder responsiveness to a list of issues he wants lawmakers to study before the next session. He says that change could mean not only a smoother process for customers, but also more transparency.
If you've reached out to TxTag customer service for answers about your bill but had no luck, we want to know. Check out the homepage of KXAN.com. Click on I Want Answers. Tell us about your experience with customer service and upload your bill. TxDOT tells us it will review and help get to the bottom of the bills we send them.
I think it's going to be really bad. My whole street's probably going to be extremely flooded.
If you wait until you realize how serious this condition is, you likely will find that it's too late for you to be able to evacuate.
We don't know at all.
what's going to happen, what's going to be there, if anything's going to be left.
We begin here at 10 o'clock on KXAN with a look at this satellite image of Hurricane Harvey.
That is the eye of the storm from NOAA's most advanced satellite.
This storm has strengthened very quickly today.
In fact, the president has now granted a federal major disaster declaration at the request of the state, Jim.
This went from Category 1 to Category 4, the 4 right before landfall. Before we go to the maps, let me give you a couple of reports that I've just gotten in. We have team coverage tonight.
That's right. Across the state, reporters following the storm as it hits the coast. We are keeping tabs on the Emergency Operations Center in Austin and preparing for a potential flood threat here in our eastern counties, Jim.
Okay, Shannon, thank you. Back to that satellite, that incredible satellite view from the most advanced weather satellite camera ever put in space. This is it. It is absolutely mind-boggling, the way this storm intensified today and then what it is doing tonight. The eye, that's Port Aransas, that's San Jose Island, that's Matagorda Island. The eye of the storm is over San Jose Island. It looks like it's trying to move a little bit to the northeast of Rockport. Is that a brand new update? Thank you. No new advisory, no landfall yet. What do we have on movement? Give me the public advisory. What's a movement?
6 knots, so about 8 miles per hour.
Okay, so it's still moving at 8. All right, we're getting a live update right now from the National Hurricane Center. They always put these things out at 15 till, but not tonight. They're a little bit busy there, I guess. I want to give you this information. These are storm reports. 110 mile per hour winds, Port Aransas. 125 mile per hour winds, Port Aransas. Rockport, Texas. Numerous structures destroyed. Debris filling the air. Peak wind gusts estimated 125 miles per hour. Got it? Buildings collapsed. Rockport, Texas, with people trapped inside. Squad car windows broken. Rockport, Texas. Southeast Corpus Christi, multiple trees down. All right, that's I just got that off the wire. That is new information regarding what is going on right now with Hurricane Harvey. Category 4 Hurricane Harvey is not officially made landfall yet, according to the National Hurricane Center. It looks like the eye is on the barrier island to us. We got 130 mile per hour winds, 160. Okay, this is a new update right here. They did not increase the wind, but it looks like it is going to go in the history books as the first Category 4 hurricane to hit the Texas coast since Carla 1961 with 130 mile per hour winds. That's a low end Category 4. The forecast cone, landfall, San Jose, it's made it. All right, we do have official landfall now. Official landfall has taken place on San Jose Island, due east of Rockport. Hurricane Harvey has made landfall on the Texas coast just east of Rockport. All right, we've got that out of the way now. The storm is ashore. It's down to a Category 2 tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. That's near Cuero. It brings it up here to not too far from Cuero, west of Victoria, is a Category 1 tomorrow night at 7 p.m. We're watching this live together. This is the first time I've seen this new cone from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see what happens. Spins around, spins around, spins around, drops back to the south, comes right back to Corpus Christi and Rockport. Amazing. Sunday, 7 a.m., kind of in line with what's been talked about, but this is the brand new cone, just updated, cone of uncertainty for those of you that may be tuned in late. We don't know. In other words, this could be a tropical storm at this stage, Saturday, 7 p.m., anywhere in the cone. Look where that cone comes up to. We've had a model all along that wants to bring this circulation all the way up here into the KXAN viewing area. We're not buying it, though, because we have so many spaghetti models that just are a mess right here in this area. They all keep it right here. And so they're onto something. Well, a big blocking ridge is what they're onto off to the west. It's stopping this thing. And then it comes out over the water. Look at that. It's still a category, or it's still a tropical storm. It strengthens. This is new. It comes back over the water. It strengthens back to a 60 mile per hour tropical storm. Man, now that I don't like. That's veering up toward Columbus, Fayette County right there. Let's go forward. That's it. That's the last. When was that? Why didn't I get 120 hours out of that? We'll check that out in a minute. All right. Watches, warnings. Let's go back to that. Tropical storm warnings for our southeast counties. We've been talking about this since 9 o'clock. I think you're very familiar with what we have here. Current radar, this is what's going on with the outer rain bands already reaching our central Texas area. Coming up, we will talk more about the specific impacts here through the weekend and into next week. This is the most important thing we can tell you about. Meteorologist David Yeomans and reporter Wes Rappaport have been live in Rockport tonight at Ground Zero for this hurricane landfall. It was a little too dangerous for them to be live with us in the last hour, but David did have this report for us just a few minutes before they had to seek shelter.
Hey, meteorologist David Yeomans here in Rockport, Texas. We've relocated from the Emergency Operations Center to a hotel, the only hotel that's open, and it's actually thankfully rated to a Category 5 hurricane. This being a 4, we should be okay here. Now we're here with a handful of other folks who have stuck around town and needed a place to stay. The power is flashing in and out. We've heard they have 3 different backups that have all come and gone for this large hotel. You can see behind me, it is a slow motion disaster playing out. I say slow motion because it's not a tornado that comes and goes. It's not a flash flood that comes and goes. This is hours and hours of hurricane force winds. Look at the power flashing. And this time it might not be coming back on. We're in the worst of the eye wall right now. When you're out there, we have not been, by the way, there are large pieces of flying debris. There's a real, I hope you can hear that, there's a real sense of terror just being outside. We've seen pieces of sheet metal 20 by 20 feet wide. You might even see some debris flying by here. And the thing about this storm is that it's so slow moving. The worst part doesn't just come and go. It's been sitting here for quite some time. We'll be reporting here all night in Rockport rather. David Yeomans, KXAN News.
We are beginning to take the brunt of Hurricane Harvey, a dangerous Category 4 hurricane, the first one to make landfall in Texas since 1961. Those beaches in Aransas County already seeing wind gusts over 100 miles an hour. We're north and east of there in Port Lavaca. We're about 25 miles inland from the Gulf, but that's not protecting us from these winds, which have already gusted over 60 miles an hour. We've also had over 3.5, almost 4 inches of rain so far. We're in the early stages of this storm. It's going to slow down and almost stop for the next couple of days, and that's going to mean rainfall totals by the middle of next week that could top 2, maybe even 3 feet across the wide area of Texas, even inland areas like San Antonio, Austin, Houston. Look out for some very heavy rain, even though you won't get the kind of wind we're having here in Port Lavaca. It's going to be a long night, and Saturday, as the storm slows down, it'll be interesting to see how long the water stays up along these coastal communities. Already getting structural damage in Port Aransas, a very beautiful beach community. Meanwhile, we watch and wait as Harvey moves on shore, slows down, and ravages a good part of the area of Texas from San Antonio to the coast with heavy rainfalls and winds right into the first of the week. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, Port Lavaca, Texas.
In the midst of Hurricane Harvey, researchers and scientists are putting new technology to the test that will predict flooding before it happens down to the street. We first told you about this last May. It was developed in North Austin at UT's J.J. Pickle Research Campus. Those behind it say it is not ready to go just yet, but they have made significant progress. The goal is to take what happens over the next several days and compare it to what their models predict will happen.
Does it work as advertised? If some of that data is not correct, you can have a very wrong outcome as far as what that prediction would look like.
And of course, KXAN will be checking back in after the threat is over to see how this technology performed.
Check this out. This photograph sent in to reported at KXAN.com showing the Texas National Guard staging in a parking lot in San Marcos. Ahead of the storm, Governor Greg Abbott activated 700 members of the National Guard to be at the ready.
The #1 priority in these weather situations is public safety, but at what cost?
KXAN's Kylie McGivern is at the Emergency Operations Center in Austin, where it is all hands on deck.
Shannon, inside this room, you have just about every city department represented, keeping an eye on this storm. We asked city leaders what impact this may have on taxpayers.
So we have a duty to the people who live in our community to do our best to keep them safe.
Jake Durr with the Austin Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management says if there is a disaster declaration, FEMA can release what's called public assistance.
That allows the federal government to reimburse local governments for a portion of their costs.
That said, reimbursement may not come until months or even years after a disaster hits.
As you're aware, budgets are quite tight around the city at this time, and so the expenses are not front of mind because we are trying to make sure that we're doing our best to protect the public and coordinating our response.
City departments say they track time specifically related to disasters.
Anything that we can do to get reimbursed for those costs, working with the federal government, if that disaster declaration is made, makes everybody better in terms of how they can continue to serve their community.
The city says it always sizes up first, meaning it gets crews ready to go and then scales back as needed, rather than go bare minimum and call in staff after the fact.
You don't want to risk someone's life or their livelihood just because you're trying to pinch pennies.
The city will also be eligible for reimbursement from the state for providing shelter to coastal evacuees. From the Emergency Operations Center, Kylie McGivern, KXAN News.
And that reimbursement Kylie just talked about will be welcome. KXAN investigators showed you earlier this week a city audit found AFD did not implement adequate cost-saving measures. The audit found hundreds of firefighters using large chunks of sick leave on the weekends, forcing last-minute fill-ins at overtime costs. And we have that full investigation on KXAN.com. Also on our website right now, check out the list of shelters that are open in Central Texas. Right now, 2 shelters open in the Austin city limits alone. The KXAN weather app will keep you updated as watches or warnings begin or end, and you can even see what is going on your street with our interactive radar. People who live in Fayette County can go to a shelter tonight at the Second Baptist Church in LaGrange if they need to, but a lot of people in that area don't expect real problems to arise until at least later tomorrow.
Meanwhile, first responders are getting themselves and their equipment ready for expected water rescues. KXAN's Chris Davis live in LaGrange with more on how people there are responding to this flood threat. Chris?
Well, Robert Shannon, the LaGrange Fire Department is getting themselves ready to respond really anywhere in the county that they are needed. They'll use this massive high water truck here just around town if there's any flooding. And this is just a privately owned truck. Someone who lives here in LaGrange offered to drive it around for the department if they needed it. And then there are the boats that the fire department will use. 3 of them here, gassed up, ready to go tonight. A 4th one on the way for tomorrow morning. Now, some places are relying on sandbags to repel the water, like the subway here in LaGrange. Others are packing up and are prepared to leave. Now, some people who live near the river apparently were advised to evacuate by a constable, but we haven't seen a lot of worry from people either who live by the river or really anywhere here in town, even as this rain has really started hammering LaGrange.
Everybody's pretty comfortable with their community. They have a lot of faith in their community, and they're going to take it easy and just let us take care of business. So.
This truck, by the way, weighs about 9 tons. The owner, Matt Taylor, says he's driven it through 3 feet of water, no problem. Guys, back to you.
Fulton, Goose Island, Ingleside, Port A, Aransas Pass, Corpus Christi, and of course Rockport, all being seriously damaged right now. In some places, there is reported devastation as Category 4 Hurricane Harvey has just made landfall. The worst is still to come. The forecast is coming up.
Football season is nearly here, and locals are not letting a hurricane get in the way of their favorite field in downtown Austin.
KXAN education reporter Aaron Cargile is at House Park with a look at what they've done there.
Sandbags, these things go all the way up to my waist. This line extends around the corner down behind the bleachers along Lamar to protect this place from Shoal Creek. You might recall this stadium looked like a swimming pool after Memorial Day 2015.
Good job, buddy. Keep going, keep going.
You could call this the pregame warm-up.
Started with just 4 people, so I say this is good progress.
They're football muscles to do the heavy lifting.
Even parents pitching in to prepare for the unknown.
Better not be any floods here.
An opponent already took out their home turf once.
It was in May last time, and it's already August, so if it happened now, that would be not good.
These competitors on the field.
We got Bowie, we got Austin High.
Now working toward the same goal.
This field, my grandfather played on this field. I mean, it just means so much to all of us here in Austin.
Robert Abernathy is the captain at Anderson.
It's really an icon. It's a symbol. We've grown up playing here, and so we're going to do everything that we can to protect it.
I love it. I think that's what sports is all about. It's teamwork. It's not just your quarterback or just your receiver or the people that get the glory. It's the full team.
Everybody say Austin!
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Woo, go!
And those teenagers know that protecting schools is the top priority. That's why they came out here to volunteer today so AISD employees could focus on buildings. I'm told more volunteers will be here tomorrow morning bright and early at 6 a.m. to make this wall even bigger. Back to you.
All right, Aaron, thank you. Now that Hurricane Harvey is making landfall as a Category 4 storm, a lot of people are bracing for the worst.
KXAN reporter Wes Rappaport and meteorologist David Yeomans are in Rockport, and they're telling us what's going on right now, gentlemen.
Hi there. Well, we are here in Rockport still. We are still at the hotel, but we'll just be quite honest with you. They're trying to figure out how to get us out of here. There are lots of folks who are worried now that this may not be the best option. We are going to evaluate that as well, but talk to us about now the fact that we are in the eye of the storm, right? So how does that change things here for us?
Well, that's what's going on. The owner of the hotel has apparently changed his mind. There's some families with babies. There's some elderly folks. And he's saying that maybe while we have the chance during this big eye that's moving slowly, might have a couple hours of time. You know, the AC here is broken. The conditions are not perfect. We have some minor flooding. He's saying maybe we should evacuate the whole hotel and go to that elementary school temporary shelter. This literally just happened 30 seconds ago, so we have to weigh our options and decide. But meteorologically, this is a window when people try to do things. This is not really recommended because the eye can be a little unpredictable. Even just a moment ago, we were, Wes, trying to bring the whole crew outside to show you the calm hurricane eye. We were unable to do so because it was calm for a couple of moments. Then we're still on that outer edge of the eye wall, and another little piece of energy kind of hit us again. You were with us a second ago. It's rainy and windy again outside, but it'll be calm for a couple hours here. We're just not quite there yet. And people are trying to do things in the hurricane eye, which is not a great idea.
Or at least calmer to a certain degree. I mean, I guess everything's relative when you're talking about winds that are like 120, 130, 150 miles per hour. Sure. Something like 60 or 70 or 80 miles per hour maybe feels a little less, but it's still pretty powerful,
right? And honestly, when we're in the middle of that eye, Wes, it should be 10 miles an hour. It should be a nice little night. But the hotel's starting to sustain damage. I was just in that back stairwell. I opened the door, not to the outside, but just from the hotel to the interior stairwell, and boom, a huge gust of wind got sucked out, which the owner is telling me means that either part of the roof is missing or windows in the stairwell or on the second floor or floors above have been blown out. So nobody's been upstairs, nobody really knows the extent of it. But as the hurricane eye rolls in, people are kind of weighing their options.
And this is one of those situations that, you know, we kind of talk about, but until you actually are in it, you don't realize maybe the seriousness of the situation. You know, you think to yourself, well, folks should stay put. If you're going to stay put, you might as well stay exactly where you are. But then there's that kind of one side to it where you say, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe there is this short window of opportunity. Yeah. We're not sure how big that window is, but are we willing to chance trying to get in a car? I mean, we have seen people out and about driving on the street through the window here. Yeah. And so that's something that you probably wouldn't see me doing, but folks are considering those options. So,
and now that you're talking it out, yeah, I mean, this literally again just happened seconds before we hit the air. I don't think it's probably a good idea to go about because we have debris in the roadways. We have power lines down. There are a million reasons not to drive somewhere right now, and especially when an eye is unpredictable. Just like we were trying to go outside to show people the calm, and then it hit again. We can't guarantee 2 hours of calm, even though that might happen for some.
We understand there's a question from you guys. What would you guys like to know from us out here?
Well, you guys, we've been worried about you because Jim reported earlier that the National Weather Service was saying that there had been buildings collapse in Rockport and that people were trapped. Have you heard anything about that?
National Weather Service is saying buildings collapsed in Rockport and any people getting trapped. We have not heard, I have not heard of anybody getting trapped in any collapsed buildings at this point. I don't know what
Nor have I, and I apologize for not having my earpiece in. I don't have the equipment. I have not heard anything of that. I was just live on Facebook, and a lot of people were asking me something about the high school being damaged or worse. I don't personally know. We're kind of cut off from the world in here, so folks in the newsroom might have a better idea than we do at this point.
Yeah, we were trying to look into, we were at the shelter earlier, that elementary school that's being used as a shelter, and they were preparing for this scenario. They wanted to make sure that the concrete was, that building is, I guess, 3 years old, concrete building, it's safe, and that's why that location is being used to house people here tonight. This hotel rated for a Category 5 hurricane, but obviously this situation is proving to be a tough one for this structure, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it won't get damaged, I guess. It hasn't collapsed to its credit, but can't guarantee that it won't get damaged. We just stepped out into the parking lot too, Wes, for a second during that calm of the eye, careful with power lines and puddles and things like that, just to look. There are huge trees down in the parking lot. I can't imagine what the roads, what the bridges, what the neighborhoods are like, where there's even more dense stuff to fall, to be broken, than what we're seeing here in the parking lot.
And the worst is yet to come. Let's give you just a quick look outside if we can.
Yeah, look at that. I got calm again.
It's calm right now. There are people walking outside. We've got the water has kind of subsided here a little bit. It was bubbling there earlier, and now you could essentially, we'll watch David as he just walks straight out the front door. Yes, there's a little bit of water there, but that's what we're looking at. So there are lots of decisions to be made here, and this is one of those things that can kind of prove costly that we've seen. Is you got to make that decision. Are we okay to go? Is this the right opportunity to go, or are we going to stay? So we are going to have that discussion between ourselves here, and we will, of course, keep you all up to date on what happens here in Rockport. But reporting live here on the Coastal Bend, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
I think you should use your best judgment. From what I'm hearing, though, I think I'd stay right there. Gentlemen, Wes Rappaport and David Yeomans in Rockport. Thanks. Jim?
Okay, we're tracking Harvey. Let me second that, fellas. David, you mentioned it yourself. The fact that there may be downed power lines and debris in the road, I think makes this a no-brainer. You guys stay right there, and I'm glad Wes added that at the end so you folks watching at home didn't think that they willy-nilly put themselves in harm's way in a motel in Rockport, Texas. They were told by the motel ownership there that this was rated for a Category 5 hurricane. We looked at storm surge maps, inundation maps, and we determined this would be a safe place for them to be. And so far, it's proven to be. However, you guys don't leave there. That is not, and tell the families that are there with small children, you're going to have to sweat it out without an air conditioner, but I don't think it's safe to get out there. And I know you're kind of in the eye right now, but you're kind of in the eye. This is why you still saw wind behind David outside the front door. Rockport, where they are, is right here, underneath the sea in Rockport. They're on the edge of the eye. This thing is slowing down. There is no doubt about it. This is terrible, terrible news for this area of our Texas coast. Terrible news. This thing is slowing down. In fact, it looks like it may have dropped from 8 miles per hour to 2 miles per hour, in my opinion. But they're not completely in the eye. If they were in the eye, it'd be dead calm out there. They're on the edge of it. Amazing, incredible, incredible stuff tonight. Category 4, let's look at the cone again. I want to get you to some more local impacts. It becomes a 2, it becomes a 1, and then nobody knows. Nobody knows what this is going to do, but odds are it's going to hang out right there somewhere for a few days. Austin does get in the cone. Could be a tropical storm again. Anything could happen at this point. I want to get you to some forecast data. We have flood warnings in effect already. Here come the outer bands of the hurricane. Only light rain so far in our viewing area. Not going to spend a lot of time on that. This is the overnight model, though. It brings more rain up into the area, obviously, toward morning. Not so much in the hill country. Our computer model, I'm going to take you one more here. Potential rainfall accumulation through the weekend. This model says 4 to 5 inches metro, 19 inches down in Flatonia, almost nothing in the hill country through Sunday night. This is very possible. If that thing stops down there on Corpus Christi, it's not going to be very wet up here in some areas. But this is also possible. If it keeps chugging up here, 15 inches metro, 30 inches down in Fayette County, not out of the question. This is not our forecast. I don't think it's going to be this terrible if that storm stops. If it keeps moving, we get a little closer to that, it could be. We could be looking at something like that. But I think that catastrophic rain is going to be in the Triangle, San Antonio, Houston, Corpus Christi. We'll come back and talk more about the models and the forecast. Right now, let's go live to NBC's Jay Gray in Port Victoria, Texas. Jay?
Hey, Jim, yeah, we are in Victoria, Texas right now, and we're starting to really feel this thing intensify. We're about 30 miles inland, and so we're just getting it to move into our area, so to speak. The rain is picking up dramatically, as is the wind at times here. And that's the issue. You've been talking about it, this stalling, this slowing down of the system. Victoria, according to the National Weather Service forecast, is going to see 30 inches of rain or more over the next couple of days here. Too much water too fast for this area. A lot of people have already moved to higher ground. All of the shelters in Victoria are filled to capacity, but we've reached the point where local officials say if you plan to get out of here, it's too late. You've got to hunker down. You've got to ride this thing out for now and wait till the other side. The other side's going to be a ways away. It's going to be a couple of days before things clear here, and with what we think is going to be a dramatic loss of power in this area, and then all of that water, it's going to be tough for crews to get in, start to repair things and clean things up until after that water starts to recede. So we could see something lingering here for the next couple of weeks for hundreds of thousands who live here and millions that are in the current zone here where they could see flooding. It's just going to be a rough go, as you've talked about, Jim, for a long time for a lot of people.
Jay, great. Thank you. Stay safe down there. Victoria might be one of the locations where that storm ends up if it comes due north. All right, we'll be watching it, Jay. Again, you and the crew stay safe. Let's come back here to the weather maps for a minute. National Weather Service rainfall projection. I showed you all the models, okay? They're everywhere. They're off the charts in some locations. They're not so much otherwise. This is the official National Weather Service projection here. 7 to 10 inches. Blanco, Dripping Springs, the city of Austin, East Williamson County, Milam County. 1 to 7 out in the hill country. That'd be a good thing if it works out that way. We don't have a terrible flood coming down the Colorado River and have to do floodgate operations out there. But this would not be good here. East of I-35, 10 to 20 inches possible. From Giddings, Bastrop, Lockhart eastward, 20-plus inches are possible. That could bring some very, very significant, dangerous, life-threatening flooding down here. But anywhere we see flash flood warnings this weekend, even if you only get 5 to 7 inches of rain, flash flood warning in and of itself means a life-threatening situation. Let's talk wind real quick. As that storm comes in, we have forecast wind gusts here by tomorrow evening to 62 miles per hour in Luling, near 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts. These are not sustained winds like down around the hurricane, but peak gust. 48 Metro, 56 San Marcos, some 35-mile-an-hour gusts. You're going to know there's a hurricane down there tomorrow as this wind starts picking up. Say again. All right, we've got 30, 40 mile-per-hour gusts there Saturday, 10:30 p.m. Look at Luling there, 62 mile-per-hour wind. Sunday morning, we still have 35 to 45 mile-per-hour wind gusts, and then the storm begins to weaken. I'm telling you, as longer it's over land, the effects will become less and less and less, except in rainfall. Days after a landfall, we can see significant, catastrophic amounts of rainfall, and often occurring in the middle of the night. We call those core rains. We'll get into that, I'm sure, in the days to come, but there's a real interesting phenomenon that can produce just incredible rain in the middle of the night with these inland tropical cyclones. And again, we'll get more to that. 90% chance of rain. Why 90 and not 100? Well, it's feasible that western northern parts of the hill country might not get very much this weekend, while other counties in our viewing area get 15 to 30 inches. This is absolutely insane. It is the first Category 4 landfall in Texas since Carla in 1961.
61, long time. All right, just a reminder, Texas State University will be not holding classes on Monday due to this storm. We will continue to monitor the situation all evening long here on KXAN and on our website, KXAN.com.
And certainly we will be with you throughout the duration of this storm. We know Jim will be watching it very closely, and all of our meteorologists. We appreciate you watching. Stay up to date here on KXAN and on KXAN.com and on social media, and get that KXAN weather app as soon as possible.